Managing the Organisation, Assessment Task 4.1, Project 4, Team Leadership Project. So this assessment is all about team leadership, it's all about management and leadership skills. And so it's looking at working in the industry from a real management and leadership position. So there's a few elements to this task. I'll go through each of them one by one. So task A is all about developing a workforce plan. So before you get started with this particular task, I would suggest that you look up the National Early Years Workforce Plan Strategy and just get very familiar with what that is and how that can be used within this assessment task. So this particular task, the first thing you need to do is you need to develop a roster. So the roster is going to be developed for this set of children and rooms right here. So you're going to have a preschool room, a nursery, and a toddler room. Your roster needs to be professional. So it needs to be done online. It needs to look like you'd actually print it out and hand it out to real staff in a real workplace. Once you've completed your roster, then what you need to do is make sure that you've covered all of these dot points. Now some of these dot points you can cover in your actual roster, and others you might need to add to a Word document and submit it alongside with your roster. So the number of staff you require and their titles, that can go into your roster. Employment status of each, that could go into your roster too, so full-time, part-time or casual. What qualification, skills and knowledge or experience for each role. So you need to divide that into room leader, assistant and a casual, and list and describe qualifications, skills, knowledge and experience. Your roster needs to make sure you're covering from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. You also need to have strategies and procedures to maximize staff performance, productivity and outcomes. So you need to talk about what are your strategies to make sure staff are performing at the highest standard they can. So some examples of that could be a really good induction, so they know what they need to be doing, professional development and training supplied, breaks, all of that sort of thing. You need to come up with a few more of your own. You also need to have a strategy for staff collaboration and cooperation. So if you have a set group of staff, how are you going to get them to come together, meet together, discuss ideas together? How is that going to look in your centre? You also need a risk analysis to overcome any barriers. So if you think about this roster and you think about running a service, what are the barriers? So what happens if somebody is sick? What happens if someone is on annual leave? So you need to write a contingency plan. So you need to come up with a range of strategies that you're going to put into practice should things go wrong, because things absolutely do go wrong. So that's task A. Task B is actually presenting your workforce plan. So you're going to take all of the information that you've got here and you're going to present it to at least 3 classmates and your assessor. So when you're presenting it, you need to make sure that you're covering all of these elements here. So you're explaining the plan, you're actually explaining how it links to the EYLF and the Early Years Workforce Strategy, which is why I suggested you have a good look at that before you start. You are then going to go through your strategies for performance, staff collaboration, and the different roles and responsibilities within that workforce plan. So this should take no longer than 15 minutes. 10 minutes is even fine as long as you cover all the points. And you just need to make sure that you gain feedback from the staff and from the assessor and note that feedback down. Then you get to move on to the next section. So this is recruitment and induction. So basically for here you need to show us that you can write a job advertisement. So you're going to do a job advertisement for one of the roles that you've identified in your workforce plan. So you would go back to here and have a look at your employment status. So is it going to be a room leader, an assistant, and a casual? Maybe you have some other roles. So you're going to then do a proper professional job advertisement for that particular job role. And that is going to be done on a Word document so it looks really professional. And you need to cover all of these points. If you miss any of these points, it's going to be sent back to you and you'll need to upload that as well. Then we have part 2 of this task. So this task is actually asking you to look back at Managing Compliance Assessment Task 11 project. This was a task that was done in your placement book and it was where you held a induction. So I want you to think back to that induction. And we can get those placement books back out for you to have a look at if you need to trigger some memory. And what's going to happen is you need to answer these 3 questions. They need to be reflective. So you need to have detail, you need to have content, you need to describe. It needs to be genuine answers to those questions. Then we have our last task, which is task D. This is all about performance management. So there is a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1, you have to access a performance management policy. So what will happen is that your assessor will give you the Blue Bay Performance Management Policy for you to read through. So it says that once you've read that policy, you have to outline the performance management procedures. So if we need to performance management a staff member, what is the procedure? You want to outline that. Then you've got to list all the relevant documents. Against each document, write down who's required to complete it. So you're going to look through this policy. You're going to look through the procedures, and the procedures will tell you if there's documents that need to be completed. And then you're going to write down next to that who would be responsible for completing those documents. Then it says to explain where and how such documents would be filed to make sure it's confidential. So part 1 will be done on a Word document as well. Part 2 is a case study that is going to turn into a role play. So this is the case study here. It's about a particular staff member, Carly, and this particular staff member is going to need some performance managing. You as a manager or a person in a leadership position is going to conduct a role play where you're going to actually performance manage another student who's going to pretend to be Carly. So you're going to be the manager or in a leadership position, and you're going to conduct a role play where you're going to performance manage Carly's challenges that you're having with her at the time. Now, not only are you going to role play that, you're also going to complete this template during that role play. So your assessor should be watching that role play, assessing that role play. So one of your classmates are going to help you out here. They're going to be Carly, you're going to be the manager. Based on the scenario, you're going to decide how you're going to performance manage them. And you're going to fill out the performance improvement plan. So this is going to be printed by your assessor that you're going to write on and fill out whilst you're communicating with Carly. You're going to fill out all of this page. What you'll find is there is a section in blue. It's a fantastic section because it gives you an example and tells you the type of things that you should be putting into the area. Of course, yours needs to reflect the role play that you're doing. So you need to fill all of these pages. So you need to fill all of the pages up until this one here. Don't need to worry about the self-assessment. And you don't need to worry about the manager's assessment. So just up to this one here. And so then you will have to submit that as well. So then you would have completed, by doing that, you would have completed all of the dot points here. And that is your action plan. So then you'll have to submit all of this. So you've got to submit your workforce plan and your Word document that has other information on it. You've got to submit feedback that you received and your plan for your implementation. You'll also your assessor will be submitting the checklist that the assessor's marked off. You'll be submitting your job advertisement, and you'll be submitting your induction feedback or reflective feedback. And you'll also be submitting your performance management documentation and research that you've done here, and your performance management plan for the scenario, and there'll also be an assessor checklist that will be signed off for that too. So again, if you have to submit something manually, it can be scanned to you to upload, and you'll upload all of your data onto here, submit that to your assessor, and they will mark and grade that for you. Thanks guys, great.